Hey, everybody, it's Keith Thornton with Trades Education Center back with another episode of Trades Secrets. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Tim House from Rheem. And he is with us this week working with our apprentices on water heaters, all things water heaters. And so Tim has graciously come to help us out. And so we just want to spend a few minutes talking about his career, his experience all over the place in plumbing, but and then specifically with Rheem and how he's helping us here. So, Tim, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
And, well, first of all, I just want to kind of get a little of the story of how in the world you ended up with us.
Well, that's kind of a long story. So I'm second generation Master Plumber. So I started in a truck, or started riding in a truck probably when I was 5. Started working probably when I was 14. Got my master's before I was 21.
Wow.
So honestly, plumbing has always been my interest. Graduated high school with a scholarship. That didn't work out the way everybody had hoped. So I went with plumbing, worked for my dad. From there, I went for a mechanical contractor in Cincinnati. Did a lot of work. I'm originally from Kentucky. So, run a stint with the Department of Housing in the state of Kentucky over the Division of Plumbing, HVAC, and boilers.
Wow.
Was on code committee, examining committee. So I've had the ability to see all aspects of the industry. So left there, went back into plumbing, and kind of just worked what I wanted to work. I've worked for Rheem for last 2 years. I relocated to Georgia back January last year. Prior to coming to work for Rheem, I worked on some innovation projects, was a ASP forum and a pro plumber, and I promised the wife that if ever had the opportunity to move south, she didn't like the winters in Kentucky, we would. I was actually down in Atlanta doing a video for Rheem, and we started talking. So the last 6 years I was in Kentucky, I worked and got an apprenticeship program going. So giving back to the trade, trying to get people to come to the trade has been something near and dear to me. One of the things that drew me to Rheem was, instead of focusing on one area in one state, having the ability to work in a larger capacity. Rheem is, approximately about 8 years ago, taking a focus on the plumber itself and working with trade schools, working with high schools. So part of my job gives me the ability to work with programs like this. I was in the area doing a training when I happened to drive by and see the plumbing school banner out front. So plumbing schools are very rare. So
Well, you've done it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's people don't realize the programs like plumbing, trade are very expensive programs. This equipment is not inexpensive. Rheem and other manufacturers, provide equipment, but not only is equipment there, you have to find people to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, a lot of people, work hard, work long. Training, 2 or 3 hours a night is not something that everybody looks forward to. So,
True.
My case was, I've done well. So, I have the ability to do that. I think a lot of our industry thinks that government should fix this. My opinion, if we're going to wait on government to fix it, it'll never be fixed. So we have to do what needs to be done and fix it ourselves.
I think a lot of the people that I've been in contact with through this process of starting the school, I think the very same way. I mean, that was where this whole idea was born out of, was necessity. Chris and Tim both needed to hire people, and they couldn't find them. And I think they got tired of either hearing themselves or hearing everybody else around them say, "Man, somebody ought to do something." And that's why I was excited. I felt like gold had walked through the door when Tim walked in that day, because the more I talked to you, the more I learned about your background, specifically that you had done an apprenticeship program before. So here we've got somebody that I can pick your, well, you probably already know I've picked your brain a lot. But that's huge for us to know others that have gone before. You can kind of give us some, hey, these are some things that I tried, or you need to be aware of these things going ahead, which has been awesome for us. It's helped us kind of temper how we do things to make sure we don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Because we recently had a discussion about that. How we are not turning out licensed plumbers with this program. We're turning out good apprentice helpers with a very basic understanding of the industry.
So it was funny. I had a conversation with the school superintendent and principals of where I'm from, or when I was in Kentucky, and my aggravation, I got a meeting with them, and my aggravation was, hey, you're not giving us enough time, for the trades. They had a good carpenter program, they had a good welding program. They had some empty classrooms and lab rooms, and it's like, hey, you need to do this. So I go there in the meeting. It's like, well, we have, our classes are 50 minutes long. And I'm like, 50 minutes. I'm like, how are you teaching somebody 50 minutes? School is kind of like work. The first 10 minutes we're socializing, the last 10 minutes we're getting ready to get out of there. So, you factor that in, you have 30 minutes education.
Mm-hmm.
Trade is not something that's good to be taught out of the book solely. There's really there needs to be a hands-on portion of it. So I made a comment, and I'm like, well, you're not educating the students. And it was funny. It's like, well, you don't understand. That's not our job. And, I'm sitting here in the superintendent's office with two principals, one for the tech school and one for the educational school. And it's like, what do you mean that's not your job to educate the students? And they're like, well, no, so for tech, we expose them to the programs or to the jobs. It's not our job to teach them. And, and I can see that to some extent, or expose, they want to be able to say, we exposed them to this. And it's kind of where that spawned the tech school superintendent, after, I ran it and come to me, and he's like, okay, he says, I understand. He said, if you want to put your money where your mouth is, here's a lab room, you have at it. So for the first 2 years of our program, we ran it out of the high school program, at night. So I would encourage anybody that's in the industry, and not just the plumbing industry. If you're in an industry that provides well for you, in my opinion, the way I was brought up, you should return that to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, those plumbers out there, HVAC, electrical, any construction trade, if that trade is provided well for you, you need to give back. So, we talked last night, trying to find somebody, a full-time instructor, is very hard, especially somebody, that's had, the boots on, been in the ground, been in the dirt, done it all. That's hard to find. So, if anybody that's out there should, take a night or 2 nights and provide for a program, teach what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think you know enough, then teaching's what you need to do. Because if you want to find out how much you actually know, teach.
I tell you what, I think that's been the neat part about getting to know so many people in the trade is I didn't know this until, I told you we had some contractors in a few weeks ago, just to kind of talk to some local contractors. I didn't know that, like plumbers, a lot of times they have a favorite part of what they do. Like there's guys that love in-ground work. They love layout, like, in the dirt layout work. Others love rough in. Others love whatever. I didn't know that was a thing in the industry, but I thought, well, that makes sense. Like everybody else in every other industry has a favorite part of the job. Not every part is great,
Right.
but there are parts they love more than others. And so I'm that's something that really resonated when you reminded me of that is, we had the conversation last night. You're like, Keith, just reach out to those contractors, find out what they're really passionate about and say, I need you to come on these nights to help our guys learn that component.
Right. Yeah. Everybody has something to share, something to add to the conversation. If, like I said, if somebody's out there that think they don't have anything to add or anything to provide, they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's had any experience, they need to share it. One of the things, and I think as an industry, we're getting better at this, is that, growing up, I was told to do something. And when you ask why, because I said so, it's not, this is why we do it. And I think we used to have a lot of mentality out there that would retain that knowledge. They weren't about passing it on.
Mm.
And, when you're working with apprentices and you bring them into school, and I learned this through teaching, is that, you have somebody comes in and they've been working with Joe for a week, and Joe just makes it miserable for them. Doesn't tell them why they're doing something, doesn't give them a reason, doesn't give them the ability to do more. It's like, well,
empower
run the truck, get this, dig this, sweep this. And, that's part of the job. I get that. But, there's always time to where here, I need you to do this. If they mess up, they mess up. That's the one good thing about having a hands-on program is that, it's okay for them to mess up here.
That's right. It's not going to mess up anybody's house.
Messing up in the job, messing up on the job is kind of an issue, but, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's a lot to do with, the mentality of who you're working with. But, I will have to say that fewer and fewer people are like that now. And I think what it is they finally come to the realization that, hey, there's nobody going to replace me. So, I need to straighten up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's something that, we talk about a good bit is encouraging. In some ways you could say, well, if so-and-so's on their way out, they're on their way to retirement. Well, good riddance. Fine. Because you're not helping anybody. Yeah. On the other hand, we could turn that conversation around and go, hey, listen, before you go, you have so much to add. Like you have so much that you could pass on. Come spend an hour, come spend 2 hours with us. I'm thankful that, Chris's dad, he's already done that with us. Yeah. And again, we've looked forward to getting more people like that. And I think it's because of the conversations I have with you, that remind me, keep going after those guys, keep going after and saying, there's just so much you have to add. There's so much that you can pass on to this next group. Right. Will we have to pass it on a little differently than maybe they would like to, or differently than how they were told? Probably. Yeah. But you still get to pass it on.
Right. Yeah. The plumbing trade has advanced so much over the years, more so probably the last 15 to 20 years. It's like we were talking with the students last night, let's take electric water heating. Really nothing fancy has come around for a long time. until, last few years. And that's going to be mandated another 5 years. So, a lot of things are changing, and gas is, it's a little further advanced. We have tankless. Um, it's crazy. The first tankless water heater I installed was in 1990.
Wow.
And, you look to where they're at now, and they're still only 5% of the market.
Wow.
So, now my guess is in another 5-6 years, that's probably going to quadruple.
Because of the changes coming to electrical.
Due to the electrical changes and gas changes.
Oh.
So, if what I tell everybody that I come into contact with is that, if you're going to be in this trade for at least 5 more years, which, hopefully 99% of them will be.
Hopefully. We need them.
Is that you have to be willing to learn. It's, the days of, hot's on the left, cold's on the right, and,
what rolls downhill.
boss is a butthead. Those days are gone by. There's a lot of technical information out there. It used to aggravate me so much is, the college conversation. That this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And if you're not college material, check out the trades. Well,
it's a backup, right?
I took offense to that because, I don't want somebody that, and I hate to say somebody that's dumb. I think everybody has the ability to learn. Whether
Agreed.
they want to or not is a different.
Or how they learn is different.
Right. So I want somebody that's capable, and Chris, any business owner doesn't want to send somebody that can't read to somebody's house to work on a tankless water heater. It's not, smart. So the education level or the IQ needs to be the same place for the trades as it does for somebody sitting in college. Now, like you said, learning, some people thrive sitting at a desk learning, reading a book, hated it. Yeah. It's funny, one of the bosses that I've had been very dear to me used to make the crack, plumbers don't do paperwork. And it was always funny, and it was true. We didn't like to read well.
That's why you do.
And so programs like here, you give the student the ability to do it with hands-on. If you read about it, you might remember it.
Sure.
If you do it, you will remember it.
Yeah.
So the hands-on is very important, and the support. The companies out there that are encouraging training. That's one of the things that I see. Being in my position with Rheem, we offer training, and you see companies that do training, and you see companies that don't do training, and you see the attitude of the employees are different.
Okay.
And it's kind of like this. So I'm valuable because of the knowledge I have. You're valuable because of the knowledge you have. If you're not willing to increase somebody's value by educating them, then in their mind, you don't care about them. So it's not, yes, somebody wants to be paid well. So if I pay somebody well, but I don't train them, I don't expect, I'm not going to pay them anymore.
No.
Because they're not learning more.
You're tapped out. They're tapped out. You're tapped out.
And, you hear the argument, well, if I train them, they'll just go somewhere else. Okay. If you don't train them and they stay, who's benefiting from that?
You're not growing.
So, increase people's value by increasing their knowledge. You know, my dad told me, many times that if you ever let a day go by without learning something, it's a waste of a day.
Mm. Hmm.
It's kind of like going to the gym, which I don't do that enough. But if you don't use a muscle, it weakens.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't use your mind, it weakens.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not bringing in new information and you're not, trying to educate yourself, your value just goes down. At the very least, it's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
But, if you don't, the information that you know now, in another 2 or 3 years, is not going to be tangible.
Yeah.
So, you have to do that. But, companies that do the training and invest in education, invest in schools, their employees see that as, hey, they care.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to me, it's been obvious to us with all the partners that we have so far is they're all companies that are investing, like Rheem, investing in education. They're out there, and Tim talks about some of the frustrations on the wholesale side of people come in and fuss at him because they, let's say it's a pump and they bought the wrong pump, and they come and raise Cain because somehow it's Tim's fault. And he's like I tried to tell you, you came in asking for a pump. And I said, okay, well, in order to get the right pump, I need this information from you. Well, they didn't want to provide it. He's like, okay, well, you pick whatever pump you want. I can't tell you whether it's going to work or not because you haven't given me the parameters. And so even on what I've seen in this whole experience is I've even seen the trickle down from, not trickle down, but I've seen the effect of manufacturers who want to educate. They not only impact contractors, they impact the wholesale side too, because they come in and they educate the wholesalers, and then the wholesalers can educate contractors. Or the manufacturers come straight to the contractors like you do.
Yeah.
So it's neat to watch that process and to notice who does well because they take advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
And like you said, that mindset of I should be learning more things. If you don't have that mindset, then yeah, you're going to miss those opportunities, which a lot of them are free.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up that is so, I used to do a lot of pump work, and, the pump rep wouldn't do classes for anybody. And, if you had a problem, he'd ask you these questions. All right, this is what you need. Well, how'd you do that? I'll tell you later. So, he ended up retiring, and we were talking about a year before he retired because he was trying to find somebody to do what he did. And I'm like, well, I don't know how many times I asked you to, how you did something. He's like, well, he said, if I taught you, you wouldn't need me. So, you have, and this goes for everybody, you have people that their reason for not teaching, if they teach you, you don't need them. So, it's a fear. And, that way, if you keep learning, then you're always going to know something more than they do. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Plumbers do not take direction well.
I've heard they have preferences.
Yeah. Well, and being a plumber, I'll say that, but I'm everybody else the same way. But I've always envied, and I'll probably catch grief over this, but I've always envied the HVAC industry.
Okay.
The HVAC industry has been providing technical training for 20 some years.
Wow.
They've, been, providing options for their customers for years. Plumbing has always, I talk a lot about like for like, I'm going to, replace this with this, it's going to be the same thing where, give your customer options.
Mm.
And you hear a lot about good, better, best. Good is typically what you got, and if that's what you want, fine. Or better or best, and we talked about the changes coming. Plumbers are going to have to stop looking at it as the mindset of like for like,
Mm.
because I tell plumbers now, if they're putting in, replacing a 50-gallon electric with a 50-gallon electric, okay, that's fine. But what's it going to take to replace that heater with a hybrid? Things change. You're going to have a different mindset. And the reason I tell them they need to look at that, because the next time they replace that heater, it won't be like for like.
Mm.
That heater will no longer be available. So you can
Wow.
either give it some thought now or wait till it happens and give it thought.
Well, prepare the customer for it too, right?
Right.
I think that's something that, I've heard you talk about. You talked about it last night. Chris and Tim talked to me about it, about how, can you go in, somebody says, I need to replace my water heater. Okay, fine. Or you could go in and say, okay, you're replacing the water heater in your home. How long have you been in this home? Are you the original owners? Has your family size changed? What's the stage of life of different people in the home? Like I hear some of these questions that y'all would ask to go, okay, maybe you don't need the exact same thing. Let's take into consideration all the changes that happened since this one was put in.
Right.
And now I think that's what I'm at least starting to hear from you, from Chris and Tim, is trying to have that mentality of let's invest a little more in educating the customer. Yeah, I like that. So, well, I want to definitely give you time to, if you have anything that you want to share from the world of Rheem with us, please do. We'd love for you to share what's going on with Rheem.
Well, so what brought me to Rheem? So I've grown up, been used probably every manufacturer out there. The reason I'm with Rheem, in all honesty, about 8 years ago they started. They made a direction where they're getting feedback from plumbers. And like I said before, I'd worked on some innovation projects, so I was part of that. And then they actually hired a team of master plumbers. So I'm a part of this team of master plumbers, and we're spread out throughout the country. And our job is to be the plumber's advocate. What issues they're seeing, what suggestions they have. My team meets with at our plant in Montgomery, Alabama, every quarter to discuss, we need to do this better, or, has anybody ever tried this, or anybody? So, it's cool that we get to work on these innovation projects. We don't get to talk about them.
We're not.
We have to sign a paper for that. But no, that's what, drew me to Rheem. My area happens to be Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi. Most of my time is spent in Georgia and Tennessee, and some in Alabama and some in Mississippi. But, if somebody is needing something, I have some contractors that reach out to me from California from different podcasts and different things. So that part's cool. But no, Rheem's got a lot going on. There's a lot of changes coming in the next 5 years. It's exciting to be on, kind of being
behind the scenes,
not really on, one way or the other. I'm not building it, and I'm not installing it, but, I get to see both sides of it. So,
but you're part of the people that are providing input,
right?
That's going to drive those changes.
So, that part's pretty cool. For me, Rheem has, what they call ILCs, Innovation Learning Centers. They have 5 throughout the United States. The first one's in Roswell, Georgia, and that's actually where the water heater headquarters is for North America. So awesome. A lot of people don't realize that, but no, I mean, outside of that, they give me the ability to work with schools like yours, work with some high schools, and then work with contractors. My favorite thing is to help plumbers. And then, I'm always picking stuff up from plumbers. It's, growing up, the material that we used was, we still had to use cast iron underground and then PVC above ground. And that was, now by the time I got out of high school, it was mostly PVC, but, PVC and copper.
Mm-hmm.
And then, through the years, you see, different products come out, and it's crazy. It's, when I remember when PVC came out, that was going to be the end of the industry. We're all going to heck in the handbasket, and, just wait. Everything's going to blow
Everything's
up.
going to break.
And then, PVC stuck around. CPVC had some issues in the beginning, and probably still some issues. And then, there's been different materials, and then now you got packs, and you still have plumbers that's it's junk, and
They don't trust
so
it.
it's funny, and it's at the end of the day, it's going to everything's changing.
Yeah.
Another 10 years, it's going to be different than it is now, and it's always the worst thing ever. And it was one of the hardest things I had to do as a plumber is to give up my torch. It was just something. Now, was I glad to get yeah, I can say, but there is part of some, what we call artwork.
Sure.
It was
Craftsmanship.
Right. So one of the things, and I'll leave it at this, is so I used to do a lot of code classes in Kentucky, and one of the things, and it was part of every journeyman and master exam out there, and it was always you had to define plumbing. And back, gosh, when I took mine, you define plumbing, and pretty much they wanted you to write it word for word. But the thing of it was, and I've learned this from getting into that aspect of it, is that, the definition of plumbing was the art of installing, and then everything that come along with it, everything from, the drain, waste, and vent, water distribution, water supply, drainage, medical gas, storm sewer, and it was always, if you didn't have the art of installing,
it didn't matter what else.
You lost everything, and
Wow.
You missed that question. And being young, this is stupid. And this is what I found out, is that, there was an examining committee that put this together, and they were, what we called old school, which I'm probably old school now, but this was their take on it. If art of installing, if you feel that what you do is art of installing, then you take pride in your work. The examining committee wanted people that took pride in their work. So if you didn't feel the definition of plumbing
was appropriate,
was the art of installing, they didn't care whether you had a license or not, because they felt you wasn't going to take pride in your work. So,
they wanted to see a connection between here and here.
Right.
Right.
It's not just a paycheck. They want you to, to me, plumbing's the coolest thing there is. I mean, you can figure out problems. You can do things. Everybody does something different. So you have the ability to create solutions that are actually tangible.
Right.
You get to be able to drive by buildings and say, I plumbed that. Or, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I took part in this, I took part in that. Now that probably doesn't mean much to 95% of the world. But when you build something with your hands and your mind, that means something. And, to be able to take pride in that, that's what the art of installing is.
Well, I love that because I do think that speaks a lot to what a lot of people are missing now. And it sounds like it's kind of resounding a lot in our younger generation right now, is that kind of feeling of lostness, of just being lost, direction, without purpose. And I think what you just described about the art of installing and that pride in what you're doing, I think that can help give people purpose. Like, there's a reason I'm doing this. It's not just a paycheck. Like, there's people's lives are going to be impacted by what I do. My life is going to be impacted by what I do. So I love that. I think that's I think that's a good place to wrap up. So, well, folks, again, this has been another episode of Trade Secrets from Trades Education Center. This is Tim House from Rheem. This is Keith Thornton from Trades Education Center. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll look forward to more very, very soon. Thanks.
Thanks.